This is Elizabeth Agee from Colorado Farm and Food Alliance. We're here today to talk about pre-planning steps for your farm business and writing a business plan. Business plans provide a clear step-by-step plan for a new farm business, the ways it plans to grow, market, budget, and plans for production. If you've been thinking about starting a farm business or when you're getting ready to put the plans together, there's some questions that you should ask yourself. Specifically, why are you doing what you're doing? And a lot of times this looks like a mission statement. Maybe you want to grow healthy food for your community, or maybe you really enjoy cooking Italian food and you want to figure out a way to bring that to the community. Something like that would be your mission statement. So it's something that you're going to keep going back to, and it's going to remind you why you're doing what you're doing. And then the next question that you want to ask yourself is, who are you trying to reach and how can you make them interested? So this is where it's really important to not just think about what you want to do, but how what you're doing is going to maybe meet a need for somebody, make something easier for somebody in their life, something like that. So, you want to look at your community and look at maybe what some of those needs are. An example are sometimes people need help cooking in small communities where there's not a ton of food options. So, pop-ups and like easy, ready-to-make things are a really good option for that kind of area. And then the next question that you're going to ask yourself is, how will you reach your customers? And so this looks like markets and distribution channels. So are you going to sell your goods online? Are you going to have a little pop-up market somewhere? Are you going to be a part of an existing market? Do you have some kind of sign-up option where people can pay in advance and then get your goods on a regular basis, like a CSA? Things like that. That's a really, really important part of any business, because if you don't have anywhere to move your produce or your goods, then you're just going to have a lot of cucumbers to eat yourself. And then the next question that you want to ask is, what will you produce? So what do you enjoy producing? And also, like, how is that going to be useful to your customers? So both of those things should inform what it is you will produce. Are you going to focus on one thing? Are you going to focus on a line of a couple of things? Are you going to maybe change what you offer over time? Just to think about what it is that you want to produce. And then the next what question is, what are your critical cost structures to make a profit? So in this one, you want to look at what is going to be necessary to produce whatever it is you're trying to produce. Do you need to rent commercial kitchen space? Do you need to buy particular tools or equipment? Do you need to regularly purchase something like a container to put your product in? These kinds of things are all things that you want to think about, because if all of those add up and you don't have a lot of profit margin with all of those costs, then that's probably not a really good thing for you to produce. Even if it's awesome, you might want to look again and see if there's something else that's going to meet all of these requirements, because this is what's going to get you to a place where you're making a profitable business that you want to keep running. And then your next question is, who is your competition? What are the alternatives to your product? So for this, you can really do some good market research by just going to the grocery store, and going to co-ops, going to your farmer's market, and see what other people are producing. And it says competition. I don't know that I like that word so much. Like, it's good to compete if the alternative is maybe like not a good alternative. Like maybe there's chemicals and dyes and stuff, and offering an alternative, I think, is a compassionate thing. This is kind of my own opinion. But it's nice to also think about collaboration when you think about competition, because a lot of times in small communities, it's better to just work with people who are potentially producing something that you're also producing, because you can find out easier ways and cheaper ways to do it, in my experience. But looking at who's producing what it is that you want to produce is a good starting point for looking at your products and what it is that you want to produce and how you want to do it. The next question is, what determines success? Critical success structures. So this is really like your own definition. Like, is success for you that you want to be doing this full time for yourself? Is success that you get to like trade with your community and have something to offer and sell and trade and, exchange in that way? Is it important for you to be like a C Corp and make a whole bunch of money and make a bunch of jobs for the community? Like, what is it for you? Do you just like really want to perfect this like particular type of bread or, jam or whatever it is that you're really passionate about, and share that with the community? But it's important to know what your critical success structures are early on, because it's a good litmus test as you go on to see if what you're doing is really in alignment with what your goal is and what you set out to do. And that can change as well. And then the last question that you want to ask in this pre-planning phase is, are you unique? How do you utilize your competitive advantage? So, this can look like you're offering a healthy alternative to the market, or like maybe you just have like the coolest branding and like it just really embodies like who you are, and that really makes you feel good about what it is that you're offering. But in what way is your business unique in the existing market, and how are you really like focusing on that as something that you want to develop as you're developing your business and bringing into this planning phase? Okay, so production plan is incredibly important. So this is where you're going to look at your regular production of the good that you're producing. So you're going to look at how regularly you're going to do this. The crop or product production based on market demand is one of the first things that you're going to look at. So you're going to look and see how often people would buy your good. If it's veggies, probably every week. If it's like a specialty pop-up meal, maybe that's every other week, or maybe that's once a month. These kinds of things are based on your own scheduling and also what it is that the community would be responsive to. Next thing you want to look at for your production plan is determining how often you want to do it. If you want to do like more of a specialty thing, there's a lot of people who have small businesses that just cater to holiday markets or farmers markets, and those are more seasonal, and the rest of the year is kind of dedicated to getting the production up and making sure that they have enough stock for those events. Or is it something that you want to do a weekly market or online orders that are ongoing? All these things are important to consider because it's going to determine how much of the product that it is that you need to make and how regularly, and that will help you plan for it so you don't have overwhelm when things come up, or maybe like you don't have enough of something and you don't know how to get the ingredients to make it or whatever. So that's really important. And then the next thing you want to look at with production plan is spreadsheets, crop planning spreadsheets with planting and harvest dates, days to maturity, number of plants, etc. All of those things are especially helpful for farming enterprises. And this is just an example of a production plan spreadsheet. If you look over across the top bar, it says, like how many days until the plant is ready, and gives you areas where you can enter the planting dates, number of plants planted, these sorts of things. You can find these templates online for free. I do have a link to them at the end here. But this is really helpful because you can plan your whole year on this little spreadsheet, and it's going to save you. It's going to help you so much because you'll have a reference and you'll kind of have a sense of when things need to be done, how many plants you need to have ready, when it's going to be ready to harvest, all these sorts of things. And this can really help you plan how many plants you need to plant and when your planting days are going to be. So all of that goes really smoothly. Okay, markets, incredibly important. So the first thing for markets is to utilize your enterprise budget to determine exactly how much time, resources, inputs, and equipment needed to produce a single crop. So you could do that in a spreadsheet as well, and just determine all of those different inputs, from tool cost to your own personal time, making sure that you're paying yourself for that. And you can add all that up and look at that compared to the value of that crop. And in that way, you can determine if the profit margin is valuable to you or not. And then another step that you can take for looking into your markets and deciding how you want to do that is to just research the markets that exist. So observing what produce and products are available at local farmers markets, grocery stores, restaurants, pop-ups, like all these sorts of things is really going to show you what's already available and maybe where there's a gap, or there's an opportunity to bring in a product that will offer some new selections. And then the next thing to consider with markets is to inquire with business owners about their produce needs. This is specific to restaurants and like food trucks, things like that. You really want to talk with the people who are already doing business and see what their needs might be. It might be that they need a surplus of cilantro, and you can provide that. But just talking to people will give you a lot of insight into what the needs are in the community already. Next consideration is to set goals for yourself for how much to sell, and then increase as time goes on in a way that is really doable. So realistic goals is super important. I think an unrealistic goal is like, I'm going to support myself with farming the first year. Like, that's not likely from just personal experience and like talking to a lot of other farmers and stuff. Typically, there's a big learning curve with anything new. So plan for that. And I think a good goal is like increase your sales 10% over 3 months, like something kind of small, something somewhat short term, but long term enough that you can like look forward to and plan for it, set those goals, and then set a plan for how you're going to get there. And then the final consideration for the markets here is factor in processing cost, packaging, vendor fees, transport, etc. So you want to look at, like what is it going to take to get whatever product in the packaging that you need to sell it. Does that look like a little compostable container for your tomatoes? Like how much does that cost and how many do you need? That's one of your processing costs. Also like your time to clean and pack things, like all of that is going to be a cost. Transport. If you need to like fill up your truck with gas to go to a farmer's market, that's going to be a cost that you need to factor in. Are you doing farmers markets? Oftentimes there's vendor fees, so you want to factor that in. All of these things are going to kind of factor into your enterprise budget, and you can look at all of these things and start to play with things and maybe think, oh, maybe I don't want to go to that market that's so far away, and find like a different solution because I'll save, you know, $200 in like gas and vendor fees per week or something like that. And that can be really helpful in this pre-planning phase. These are some certifications that you can do that are kind of related to food businesses. The first one is the Cottage Law and Food Safety course. The closest one is in Grand Junction, but they also do it online. And we're going to have a course specifically about that, where we'll talk about that more. But that's basically where there's certain things that you have to do, but you can cook your goods in your own home, and you can sell them to the community. And so that's a really lovely way to, get started with a business, or just do kind of like a little side thing, or, just not have to have a whole lot of extra red tape and steps in your enterprise budget to get going, not a lot of overhead. And then there's also lots of herbal workshops, permaculture, biodynamics. Those are all things that are related to, herbal medicines and regenerative agriculture and ways to improve soil, things like that. All very helpful for farm-related businesses. And then you also want to look at your tax status. So you want to make sure that you're a certified business, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. I encourage you to talk with an accountant, or just like do some research online about the differences between them all. We won't go too much into that here, but LLC is kind of like the basic level. It means limited liability corporation, and that's what a lot of people who are small businesses will do, where it's just like one or two people. Even if it gets up to like 3 or 4, like it's fine. But after that, you might want to think about a different one. But that's a really good entry point. Sole proprietor is if you're just operating by yourself. C Corp is more if you're trying to scale like a larger company with a lot of production and a lot of like business employees. And then B Corp is similar to C Corp. It's kind of new, but it looks at more than just the bottom line from a financial perspective. It has a triple bottom line. So it looks at the impact of the business from a financial perspective, and also from a social perspective, like how many benefits do they offer to their employees, and like how good is the work environment and how good is the culture. And then the third consideration is the earth. So it's also looking at its ecological implications of its production. So that's a really important kind of corporation model moving forward that can really do good if done in a good way. And we really start to look at all of those different bottom lines. So those are all things that you would get certified in. It kind of determines how you file your taxes and things like that. This is kind of just a recap of the pre-planning steps that you want to take for your business plan. 1, research. 2, design your farm or business. So that's looking at the enterprise budget. That's looking at, your labels. That's looking at like, what do you want to call it? That's looking at your whole planting plan for a field or a greenhouse. You're designing your future business. And then 3 is create your crop production plan. So that's actually like taking it beyond the ideas and like putting it into the spreadsheet and having your dates and your number of plants and all these things very clearly laid out for yourself. 4 is prepare your land or arrange your working space. It's very important to like just clear things before you get started, So if you're starting a new project, like maybe you want to clear a desk, to like do these kind of plans and like clear your mind and be present with what you're doing anew. Preparing your land, that can look like building soil health or clearing out, like any debris or trash and just like getting it ready for a new project. 5 is grow your crops or produce your goods. It can look like a lot of different things. 6 is market and sell your crops and goods. And then 7 is record and track. And I would also add like reflect. So record everything you do. And then in the wintertime for me, it's a time to like look and be like, that didn't really go so well. Or like, that was awesome, and I want to do more of that and less of that. And all these kinds of reflections will help you get closer to a business that is, closer to who you are and like how you want to live your life. So that reflection is huge. It's crucial. And these are just some pictures of pretty products and produce. These are the resources that we talked about. So there's a business plan template from the Cottage Law website that's really specific for more like products and baked goods and things like that, more added value goods. Moses Organics has some really good information for beginning farmer resources. Beginningfarmers.org has some really great crop tools and business plan resources, like some of those spreadsheets that we were talking about earlier. They have a lot of those resources to help you get started with your planning. And then this last one is Oregon State is now offering a free permaculture course. So you can do that online if you're interested in learning more about soil health and regenerative farming techniques, so that when we are producing food, we are doing it in a way that is respectful and in relationship with the earth, as well as, taking from it. We're also giving to it and providing health. So I love permaculture. It's great. And thank you so much. If you have any questions about writing your business plan, you can email me. My email is cofarmfood@gmail.com. Thanks.